Welcome to What's New with CareerForce March 5th, 2020 webinar. My name is Lisa Snyder, and I will facilitate this meeting and also present on the CareerForceMN.com updates. Today's speakers who we have in the room today, we have Rita Beatty, who is the Communications Specialist. You might have another title there, but I think that's how we see you, Rita. Laura Wingy, who is the Communications Director, and Mike Lang, Job Service Director, and of course myself, Lisa Snyder, and I am the CareerForce Specialist and Trainer. So what we're talking about today, the CareerForceMN.com updates, I will cover that. I will cover frequently asked questions, help desk questions. Today we'll cover disability resources. We'll also talk about leveraging your CareerForceMN.com location page. For the communications update, Laura Wingy and Rita Beatty will review a draft version of the new Career Seeker Resource Sheet. And for the Employer Navigator update, Mike Lang will review a draft version of the new Employer Handout. So I'm going to go right into the CareerForceMN.com updates. Frequently asked questions for the disability resources that we get, what resources are available on the platform. And then we'll talk about how you can leverage your CareerForceMN.com location page so customers know how to reach out to you, to your location directly, and see what resources and information is on your location page. This will eliminate steps to finding information directly related to your site, and of course, this will increase the customer satisfaction. So we'll get started right with the Career Seeker Disability Resources. The FAQs that we get in the CareerForce Help Desk would be things like, what types of resources are available? Can someone with a disability get help looking for work? Is a counselor available? Where can I get an assessment that determines a disability? We get folks who have disabilities directly, but we also get a lot of people that represent somebody with a disability, a parent or someone that's working with them. So they really want to know what kind of resources are available to help their customer or themselves. So to locate the disability resources, you go to of course, the Career Seeker page, and under Tailored Resources, and then you would go to the Disability Resources. You'll find links to the open events, and I found that when there would be training resources or under training, they're directed to the open events. There's an email to vocational rehabilitation counselor, or the program, and then there also is a link to the Disability Benefits 101 website. There's information on informed choices and workplace accommodations and rights and a policy review, and also information on living independently. Now, of course, customers going to the CareerForce location, they want to know what kind of services they can expect. I reached out to Jody Yonda last week, who is a regional manager for the vocational rehabilitation program, and she had said a term that I completely forgot about, and that is universal services. So yes, a customer that goes to a CareerForce location, they can expect to receive universal services at a location and assistance with assistive technology equipment. Now, the other thing that Jody brought up was, well, what if they need training on that equipment? Well, then I would say, why don't you go ahead and email us at the CareerForceMN.com help desk and let us know if you need training on that. If a customer asks to speak to a counselor, they are then referred to the VR program. This is something that we've had dealt with for several years at the CareerForce locations, is when a customer goes into a CareerForce location and they have a visible disability, and maybe staff behind the desk aren't sure how to help them. Maybe they instinctively say, let me go ahead and refer you to the VR program. But we know that's not something that we are supposed to do. What we're supposed to do is first ask them what they need help with.
One thing I'd like to add to that as well, too, is whenever customers come into a CareerForce location, sometimes offering to help them with something can start the conversation off on the wrong foot, depending on how sensitive the customer is feeling that day. So a common thing that I would suggest is as somebody comes into a CareerForce location, start the conversation off by asking, what brings you in today?
Great.
And that might start you off on the right foot.
I think that's a great idea. You know, I just want to go a little bit further on that. Last year when I was going out to visiting the different sites, you know, I know there are some sites where a little apprehensive about helping someone. They didn't really know how to help them. And so when we went over and said, well, you know, when they go to the desk and they need help with this, you know, they would express some concerns they had working with people with disabilities. And so I think that's a good idea. And I think really what you're saying, Mike, is we just need to start that conversation and just get over that initial fear maybe people have with working with someone with a disability.
Right, and instead of making assumptions, let the customer kind of drive that conversation of what they are looking for.
Yeah, right, great. And we can always talk more about this too.
Yeah, and I was just, and I don't know the answer to this question, just throwing it out there. Is there a place for people to go to kind of have sort of tips exactly around that? I mean, is that?
Well, but we could revisit the welcoming protocol that we discussed maybe at this point, might have been a couple of years ago. That is an overall guidance for how we do that. And I would propose that we will be bringing the welcoming protocol back, and that might be an opportunity for either future What's New with CareerForce or other training opportunities as well.
Yeah,
add a little bit more specific information
right.
in. Okay.
Yeah, and we'll expand on that. Because I do know there's genuine concern in how to work with someone with a disability. And so I know that Ann Feeman and her group did some training last year. But I think a lot of times, you know, like anything, if you do training once, you know, you forget and you lose your confidence. And so we'll be revisiting this topic for sure. All right, so we'll go ahead and move on to the Employer Disability Resources section. And again, under Tailored Resources and then the Disability Resources, the customer will find benefits of tapping into this talent pool and recruitment strategies. Link to JAN, which is the Job Accommodations Network, which discusses workplace accommodations. And then the employer responsibility under the American Disability Act, which you'll hear referred to as the ADA. And then a link to the VR services to help the employers with recruiting and financial incentives.
Maybe if we could just, before we go to the location page, just asking people out in the field if you use the resources, the disability resources, either for career seekers or for employers with customers, and if you have any comments on how they're laid out, suggestions for improvement, anything along those lines, it would be great to hear from the people doing the work, if the website is helping to support your work.
That's a great question, Rita. And that is a question that we really need to know is, what do you do? Do you refer your customers to the CareerForce.mn.com, the website? And do you tap into these resources to help you understand what's available? And do you use that site to help them? I think that's another reason why we had this topic is because we at the CareerForce, the help desk, we get these questions. And so it'd be interesting to see what kind of questions you get out there and how do you help your customer? Do you use the site to help the customer? And it doesn't look like we have any comments or questions, but please go ahead. If it comes up, add them in.
I just wanted to add one little thing. At the very bottom of the screenshot that Lisa has there, you can see just a little headline that says Andrew's story. And I just want to point that out for folks that we are doing a lot more with integrating blogs and content onto these resource pages. So not only can employers now find kind of the language and the text of what we do, but we're trying to tell stories about how our services actually help. So in the case of Andrew, for example, we shot a quick video, and we can't do those sorts of things without you guys. So it's just a plug to really submit success stories to us. There's a form on the site, and yes, we look at all of those, and Rita turns them into blogs, or we turn them into little videos like you see here, and we scatter them across the site to really try to make the site come to life instead of just being text, but we can't tell those success stories without input from you guys.
So two things I'd like to add to that, and these success stories go a lot of places, but one of the places that I see them very frequently featured is in the waiting area in the commissioner's office. So having your success stories be a part of this is a way to really broadly tell the story about what we're doing out in CareerForce. And the other thing that I'll say is as we ask for your feedback and suggestions, or even just to give us some information about how you use some of these resources in the field, I'm going to invite uncomfortable pauses, because I paid attention to who's attending this webinar today, and I know that there are those of you who are using these resources and are familiar with them and can weigh in on this. So please participate where you can. Laura's going to take this next question.
Right. I see a question from, I think that's Angel. There were tens of thousands of brochures available in the warehouse from not that long ago. So nobody has indicated to me that there aren't any there. So Angel, if you want to reach out to me directly and let me know which brochure, if you're looking for the career seeker or employer, but we printed like, again, tens of thousands of them, and I have not been notified from the warehouse that they are out. I do know that we are almost out of CareerForce folders, and I have that reprint in the system. So if you're looking for folders and you get an out, just know that those are on order, but I have not heard that the brochures are out. So I will check, and Angel, if you can just shoot me a note about what exactly you were looking for, and I'll make sure it's the right one.
Perfect. Thank you for that, Laura. And for those who didn't read the comments, if she asked the question, that's okay. When will the new CareerForceMN.com brochures be available from the printout? So of course, that's what she responded to. So Laura, thank you for that. No, that's fine. And so I think just to what Mike was saying, and I know, again, from going out to the CareerForce locations, I know there is a level of uncomfortableness with some staff working with people with disabilities. And so this is a good time, and you might be uncomfortable with it, but go ahead and give your feedback on as far as what you think about it or what resources are available, and how we can better help address working with you so we can help you feel more comfortable working with people with disabilities. So that is something that we really need to address. And if not now, certainly later. So thank you, everyone. I think we'll go ahead and move on to the next topic. And so the next one is leveraging your CareerForceMN.com location page. And a lot of you already know about this, the pages out there, but this is worth bringing up again, and how to leverage your location page. Of course, there's a brief description about your location on your page. Customers can email the location or make a connection through the Connect with Us button, and if they use the Connect with Us button, they will see a connection on their dashboard. Customers can add your location to their dashboard by clicking on Add to Favorites. And then customers can engage in social media by liking and sharing the location page, as you see there below it circled in the like. And I think that's kind of interesting, because we do like our likes on Facebook and also LinkedIn. But if you get a lot of likes on your location, that means, boy, you guys must be doing something really good there. And then, of course, you can share that on Facebook and LinkedIn, tweet it, and then that little email icon, you can email your location. They can email the location to someone that they think might benefit from looking at the page.
I can take that first question from Kevin. Kevin and the folks, and Denise, hi Denise, asked, why not have an electronic display in the CareerForce Career Labs to display these stories? You absolutely could. If you have a TV, we have graphics out on the CareerForceMN.com website that you can download. They are specifically formatted for television screens, and so we can add those as graphics that you guys can put there too. So yep, that's a great idea. If you have a television, we've got some generic graphics out there for you, but as success stories come in, I can certainly make them into a TV screen presentation too.
And the next question?
So I don't know that I'm really the right person to answer this question. Can you customize a location description? Not right now, because they're all on the same template. Should people be able to? Personally, I think that's something that needs to be revisited.
Oh, okay.
But that's a technology issue right now. The template is built and applied to all 50 locations. So no customization is available in that top portion. So in that box at the top, where Lisa's got circled in red, the likes and the add to favorites, that from that red circle above, that is not customizable. What is customizable, though, are those service cards underneath. And, for example, I just worked with Sylvia Garcia, who is currently running a special program in about 10 CareerForce locations on a construction and heavy hiring program that they have. And so we made custom service cards that appear in those locations where that program is offered. We have a link to the program application, which is a long PDF. And so that would be a way to customize your thing is to contact CareerForceMN.com about a service card if you have a program that is being offered at your location that's unique.
Great. Thank you, Laura. Looks like the next question will go to Rita, maybe. When will the employer PowerPoint be ready?
I'm hoping to refocus on that. Just finishing submitting the state plan today, so that sucked up a lot of my time here over the last couple of months. So I will get that posted as soon as I can get to it.
Great, thank you.
And I assume that'll be highlighted in a CareerForce email.
Yep, I'll link to it in the upcoming staff and partner email.
Wonderful, thank you. And as you see that here on this slide, there is, as Laura was talking about, the service cards, which you are pretty much all familiar with, and then there are the events specific to your location as well. And if a customer wants to print the events, they would get a printout like you see in the middle image there.
Right, and I just want to be sure people realize that, because I've had people say to me, well, we can't print these. So yes, you can, and right there by clicking that printable version button. Maybe it's not in the calendar view that you were familiar with or used to, but what we ran into when we tried to cram everything into a little tiny box is that your descriptions often got very cut off and weren't user-friendly when we're trying to cram 3 events onto Tuesday, March 3rd. So this format, although it doesn't look like a calendar that you might have in your head, it really is, and it is available and there for you guys as well. I know some locations like to have a calendar at the front desk. If you need to print some out every week, this is your way to do that without having to make work for yourself.
I actually often forget about this, so this helped me to go over this. I have a question. So do anyone in the room know, is that printable version available on just the home page, or is it specific to a location? Does that make sense? Can they print this off on the home page, all those events?
I can look right now, but I don't think you'd probably want to.
Right. I would agree. I would agree. I just wonder if they can only get that if they go to a location page.
I don't know.
Okay.
Rita will look and we'll answer the question when we get the answer.
Yeah, you'd have to be careful to at least filter a bit if you did it. Yes, you can do it from that main page, but you'd probably want to filter it somewhat, because otherwise you're going to end up printing, like right now there's 311 events within 40 miles of St. Paul. And
that's just St. Paul.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there would be a lot of events printing if you
we don't want that there. Yeah, I would say another reason why the location page would be great to have this, our customers be able to utilize this function. Okay. If any other questions, please go ahead and enter them in, but it looks like there are no more questions. So it is time to pass this on to Rita and Laura, the communications updates.
Okay, so this is, just to be clear from the outset, this is a draft. We're still working on this. It's a revised version of a a document that can be customized for each location, and it lists all the services that career seekers and other resources that career seekers might be interested in. And the conversation today is really about, is this a useful resource? Do you use it? Do you have these customized for your location? Is this the right format? Should the resources be listed in alphabetical order? I mean, what things would be most helpful for you to make sure that this career seeker resource handout is as helpful as possible? Hoping we'll get some questions and responses here in the chat. So just, and maybe Lisa, I think you might have more background on this than anyone else in the room. I don't know if you want to say a little bit more about why this particular resource was developed.
Sure. So it must have been maybe 5 years ago, 6 years ago, maybe we had a complaint that was elevated up to the Human Rights, Civil Rights Department. Someone felt that they were being discriminated against because they were not informed of all of their choices, meaning when they met with a counselor, the counselor didn't tell them about all the programs that are available. And so they lodged a complaint. And that, I'm not going to, that was just a very broad way to say what happened. But so what we did, we had, the Civil Rights Center had told us we had 60 days to put together training. And part of that requirement was to make sure that customers were aware of all the programs that were available. So we put this together. I worked with Laura, and Laura and I had developed this document some years ago so we can show what other, so we had on the document that all the programs that are available and a brief description of them all. And then when staff used them, they were to say, that's how they were trained, so customers knew what were available. You know, you talk about the programs are on the front sheet and the back sheet, so you can at least show the customer certain things that are available. Now, because staff thought maybe, well, I want to make sure they knew about MFIT. Well, I want to make sure they know about ABE. Well, you can. Then if there are some things that you want to make sure the customer knew about, you can say, well, there's this program and ABE, and then there's TAA, but we want to make sure you are fully aware of all the programs that are available. And that's how this document was, the reason why it was first developed.
And the other thing I'll add to this, too, is that documents like this have existed in our locations for a long time. We called them different things. They looked differently. They may not have had all the programs that are listed here, but we frequently refer to them as information or CareerForce location handouts that are just supposed to connect people to the local programs and services available at any location. And so this is a kind of a standardization of that to ensure that we are covering all the programs. Migrant and seasonal farm worker services, as an example, if that's not on your regular handout, it should be, because that is a basic career service that we offer as part of being an AJC, an American Job Center. The expectation is that migrant and seasonal farm worker services are available to customers who come to those locations.
Right, not just the locations where we might have staff in those programs. So, so the reason for the standardization is kind of super important because of these legal issues that we are talking about. And again, a lot of these things don't necessarily trickle down to the field, but they are issues that are very real from a legal perspective. So I think what Rita is going to do is kind of just walk through. We've kind of got it broken up so you can try and read it. And then our goal would be that on the back, we leave some space in the Word template that you guys could add those programs that are your own. To make it a little more customized, but kind of what you are seeing presented from us would be standardized language, and you guys wouldn't be changing that description of the MFIP, for example.
I think you're referring to this page, Laura?
Yep.
Okay.
So yeah, and feel free, please jump in on chat and share your thoughts.
Yeah.
I know it's not that easy to type out a comment in chat if it's kind of convoluted or complex, but, and of course, if after the webinar is over, you have questions, feel free to send them to careerforce@state.min.us.
Right.
So if you want to go up to the first page.
So we do have a question.
Oh, okay.
Career Lab hours, can these vary by site?
Yep, that whole back box is customizable, and we're working on coming up with like a standard way for you guys to input other stuff that's customizable. But yeah, that whole box on the back where you see the Monticello hours and things will all be able to be customized by you guys.
And we have another question. Is this the same as the guide to programs and services? Yes, it is. This is the one that Laura and I originally developed years back, but it's just been rebranded. And Rita, did you want me to go back?
Yeah, let's just,
okay.
I guess, go back up to the first page there of it, or the first half of the first page.
Okay.
No, one more up.
Up? Okay.
Sorry, I had to kind of break it up so it was a little bit readable on screen.
Okay, and I'm just making some notes here too on the questions that came in, because those are good questions. So this is supposed to be kind of a, we thought it should start with maybe the most used resources, but again, we're open to changing things around however you think would be most useful. So career planning and job search assistance, pretty big reason why people come in, wanting to highlight the classes and workshops and letting people know, you know, kind of generally what they cover, but knowing that there are other options and how they can go about registering. Wanting people to know about hiring events and career fairs. Just kind of looking through these other resources in the other column, making sure we're highlighting adult basic education, a CareerForce partner. Having information about the dislocated worker program, that is obviously something that a lot of people coming into CareerForce would be interested in. I can say that dislocated worker is always one of the top searches on CareerForceMN.com, so people are always wanting to find out more about it.
And I want to add to that, Rita, we get a lot of calls on the dislocated worker program, a lot.
So that's definitely, you know, something to give at least people a little bit more information about, and then refer them for more information on the website or to speak with them to talk with them more about dislocated worker. Laura had mentioned migrant and seasonal farm worker services, making sure we have those on each of these handouts so that way people, no matter where they are aware of those services. You'll see there that there's a website link on CareerForceMN.com. I'm in the process of building that page right now. So that's not there yet if you go to look, but it will be soon. Then if you want to go to the next page there, we thought we should highlight, of course, ways to search for open positions, CareerForceMN.com. Anybody can search, thousands of Minnesota positions, no login required in order to search the positions. Most of the job search listings on CareerForceMN.com have a link directly to the employer site where you can apply. Some do link to Minnesota Works, and so you would need then a Minnesota Works account to apply for those jobs. And of course, there is MinnesotaWorks.net, which continues to be the state's job bank. Career Lab, I think this is where the person had mentioned the ability to vary hours. Yes, Career Lab hours can vary, and so those can be customized per location. A couple of other programs, and again, this is kind of, right now they're just kind of organized alphabetically, but they could be organized in a different way, because why would you have, you know, MFIP right next to Minnesota Federal Bonding? Might not make, you know, sense if you're categorizing that way, but it does make sense if they're putting them in alphabetical order. MFIP, just more information about it, also building that MFIP page on CareerForceMN.com. Part of that is so that way we will always have a way to update information on MFIP and also not have a gigantic web address, which the DHS link for that is very long. Minnesota Federal Bonding, of course, this is a program for employers. However, employees might be interested in knowing about this so they can tell their employers. If you want to just go to the next page there. So this is the other side of that, the Career Seeker Resources sheet. Again, in alphabetical order, Pathways to Prosperity. We do have that page built on CareerForceMN.com that just talks generally about Pathways to Prosperity. We did have a map. We had to take that down. If people are interested in having that map, please let us know, let others know, because we would love to put it back up. That map that was on the P2P page was searchable by location, so like dots on a map in the Minnesota map, and also searchable through a list, either by location or type of training.
Yeah, okay, I just want to say something to add to that, Rita, if that's okay. We get a lot of calls from the career seekers asking what kind of programs are available, and is there money for this, money to pay for this training, this course, whatever. And so when I go to the website, I look to see what's available, and I explain to them what's there, but I forget to say that the P2P grant or the Pathways to Prosperity is available. And so like Rita was saying, if that's something that you think that we should, need, or, please go ahead and email us, and we'll see what we can do to add that, make it more visible.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. And then Senior Community Service Employment Program, that's another one that is available throughout the state, but there is specific information about it. There are specific providers. That webpage is also being built. I just worked with Heather Moore, and we're pretty close on the language, so hope to get that up in the next week or so. State services for the blind, just making sure that we're, making sure customers are aware of this resource, and that is something that is available to Minnesotans statewide. Skipping over, and now, of course, we're going out of alphabetical order because we're just looking at the top half of the page here, but Work Opportunity Tax Credit, again, something that's more geared towards employers, but employees might want to know about that in order to tell their employer to help, potentially help them get a position. Workforce Investment Act Title 1B Adult Program. This, I would love to hear what anyone has to say about this, because I understand if it needs to be on here, but it seems very, I guess, murky compared to the other resource listings. Like, the other ones, it's very clear who they are for, and this one is kind of like, well, it kind of sounds like.
Yeah, we don't know. We need a new name. We need some brainstorming around how do we explain WIOA Title I to our customers, because this doesn't do it right now. So if folks in the locations are currently calling this something else, I know Minneapolis is having conversations around this right now with their WIOA Title I providers, like, what do we call this to help our customers understand? So if you guys are already calling it something else, we would love to hear that or hear your suggestions on it.
I just want to add to that, when we get calls, recently we've been getting calls on folks asking about that, and they don't know what it calls it. WIO, they'll just try to what somebody told them. So I see that this is something that they probably need help with understanding the title.
Youth services, now that one's pretty self-evident what it is, but a brief description there, and then it does link back to the CareerForce site, to the youth page. And then if we go to the bottom of this side of the career resource sheet, this is obviously the spot where people can customize their information in that big blue box. Then on the other side, just continuing with other resources, SNAP. Similarly, we are building a page on CareerForceMN.com with basic information that would then link back to the DHS site. Unemployment. Of course, people are interested in that, and we'll just give them the UI site. Veteran services, linking to the veterans resources, career seeker side on CareerForceMN.com, another kind of self-parent section, and then vocational rehabilitation services, VRS. Again, just talking about having a resource sheet where you have all the resources available. You're not trying to tell people what they're looking for, and instead they can kind of see, this might be for me. And again, linking back to CareerForceMN.com. Any thoughts on how we can make this better? Like I said, this is a draft. We want your input to try to make this as useful as possible, and we would love to hear from you. And if you don't, if you're formulating your thoughts or just can't get them into the chat because there's too many, go ahead and email us at careerforce@state.min.us, and we will work to make the updates. Okay, we just had a question come in. I think the topic.
At CareerForce in Washington County, we created a 2-page CareerForce guide handout that summarizes the Career Lab, MinnesotaWorks.net, CareerForceMN.com, workshops, events, and programs such as adult basic education.
Yeah, basically all the programs that we just talked about.
Yeah.
So what we would say there, Vivian, is, yep, we know locations, lots of locations have created their own pieces. We have to be talking about these programs in the same way so that customers receive a universal experience kind of regardless of where they go. So that would be, your handout would be replaced by this one. Again, though, we're trying to shorten this and give you space to customize it. So if you have your own P2P program and you want to give specific details about that, there would be room. If you have the highway heavy haul career program and you want to put information specifically about that, we would leave a section of this space customizable for you. But when we, across all of our locations, are talking about VRS, we need to be describing it in the same way. And again, this does get back to some of those legal issues that we face. It gets back to some of the federal requirements of what being an American Job Center means, et cetera, et cetera. So all of those individual handouts that you guys have created would be replaced by this version with that ability to customize.
Nice. That's awesome. Great. Thank you, Laura. We have a question. I'm not sure anyone here can answer that. How do we coordinate services for migrant seasonal farm workers with other states? As we look for Mike.
It's a little out of, that question is a little out of scope for what we're discussing here today. And also, I'm not exactly sure to what level of coordination you are referring to, Sylvia. You may need to clarify that question a little bit more.
So go ahead and send it into the CareerForceMN.com email. That would be great because then we can talk about it more. I would also suggest maybe, because Rita was mentioning, she's asking for what kind of improvements are we looking for. Maybe in one of your staff meetings, bring this document up and then have that kind of conversation and say, let's talk about it.
Yeah. Great idea. And Sylvia is a member of that team, and we can discuss that at an upcoming call that is scheduled with the migrant seasonal farm worker staff.
Great. Good. Wonderful. Thanks, Mike.
There's a question on there, too. Can you add the UI phone number? Yes, that's it. This is actually a question for you all out there. Does it make sense to put phone numbers throughout when in many cases the phone number is the same phone number to your, like in Monticello's case, the 763-271-3700? But we know there are some other phone numbers. So we could have the UI customer service phone number. That makes sense. Are there other phone numbers that make sense to have on here that aren't the same as your location's front desk phone number?
And there's room on the sheet. I won't lose a line of.
Yeah. We get a lot of UI questions on the help desk.
Yep.
All right. So again, go ahead and email those questions to CareerForceMN.com email address. I think if we're done with your section, we're going to move on to the Employer Navigator updates, and Mike Lang will go ahead and take that.
All right, and for the Employer Navigator updates, we're going to have a similar conversation to what we just did with the Career Seeker Services Resources handout. This one will be on the Assistance for Minnesota Businesses handout. You see the full version of the front page of that here on the screen. This resource is one that we would expect that Employer Navigator, those of you who fulfill the Employer Navigator role, or even those who just work with answering questions from employers would refer to this handout either while you're conversing with them on the phone or making it available to employers as they come into CareerForce locations, that this resource is available, because it goes over as many of the services as we can think of available to employers and businesses in Minnesota. And many of those are going to be related to the services that are available here through DEED in some form or in coordination with other agencies as well. So as we go over it, please let us know what's useful. Is there anything missing? Do you see anything that should be changed? For example, that question about the unemployment insurance number, that was a good one. So let us know. So here, the first part of this handout starts with a quick overview of what the handout is and doing business in Minnesota. This handout was developed primarily for the business and community development staff as they are speaking with employers, but it's relevant information for any employer and business in Minnesota. And then it goes into the detailed information about all the different things that are available to businesses, such as location assistance services, Minnesota's Business First Step, the Small Business Assistance Office, the Small Business Development Centers, angel loan funds, job creation funds, investment funds, targeted business programs for entrepreneurial loans, easy for me to say.
Right.
Minnesota Indian Business Loan Programs, the Reservist and Veteran Business Loan Programs, tax credit programs, I'm not going to read all of those, but industry-specific incentives, and community development funding. I bet you didn't know all that stuff was available through DEED.
And what I would say, like how Lisa gets those questions on the help desk from career seekers, like what funding is available to me, that is the most common question that we get at DEED from businesses is, what kind of grants and loans can you give me? How can the state help me? And so this is just a little overview, but it at least gives people something to start their research from.
I think that's a great idea, because we do get those questions, and the folks who are like, well, I kind of want to start a business, but I'm not sure, where's the money? And
Yep.
so is this handout in the CareerForce locations right now that's available to anyone, or?
Not
It's also draft.
Yeah, this is a draft also. There is an older version that has been used for a long time with the economic development folks, but we just thought this was an opportunity to kind of roll it out system-wide to just help the employer navigators in CareerForce have something to point people to. So,
and I think too, just to get your input, because this isn't finalized yet. Is there something missing on here, and could this be?
Yep.
Do you have a suggestion to make it more useful for your work? It looks like there's another comment.
Okay.
So this comment from Julie is a clarification from previously where we were talking about the Title 1B adult program. Julie adds and shares that the WIOA Title 1B adult program is for participants in need of training services to enhance their job readiness or career pathways. They may access career training through a list of state-approved training providers and their approved training programs. Participants can select from the list of eligible training providers, ETPL programs that meet their needs. There's just some additional clarification on what the adult program is for suggestion comment for that as well.
Yep.
We do have a naming issue with our programs. Dislocated worker program doesn't always have to. I always go to my shoulder when I'm thinking about that.
Okay. Yeah.
Right.
People say that. I mean, we've had people say, I didn't break anything.
Yep.
So we'll think about that name too as we do.
And this question is back to the employer sheet here. Lisa, if you want to read it.
Okay, so this one is most walk-in employers are looking for recruitment assistance. Is there space for locations to insert our own event options?
Marnie, thank you very much for transitioning us to page 2, which is...
Oh, okay. Which is, there we go.
exporting and workforce recruitment and training assistance. So there's some additional information about the export programs from the Minnesota Trade Office, part of DEED, and how to connect with that. And then the workforce recruitment and training, you'll see it goes into a whole bunch of resources on that, such as the disability employment specialist, which I believe are a division of voc rehab. If we continue on here, you see more information about other programs, such as what if somebody's going to be facing downsizing, that those employers might need to connect to the dislocated worker program, the foreign labor unit, labor market information, migrant seasonal farm workers, helping those with agricultural workers. They would also connect them back to the foreign labor unit as well, both of which, if you don't know, foreign labor, migrant and seasonal farm workers, work opportunity tax credit, those are all now a part of, or will be a part of, the job service unit.
It's like a really great handout.
Yeah, very, very detailed. The workforce strategists are on here, the Minnesota Job Skills Partnership and job training incentive programs, recruitment assistance through our labor exchange, which is also a little bit referring them back to CareerForce. Information and resources available, some of the other websites that give more information about being a business in Minnesota, Compare Minnesota, the International Market Research and Trade Resources, Launch Minnesota, some of the publications that we offer, unemployment insurance, there's further resources. So we're looking for your feedback on anything that you may have on that assistance for businesses.
And Mike, if we could jump in too. So there's that spot, that empty spot there that could potentially be a spot for, like, I think it was it Marnie who mentioned just having a local resource for recruiting and hiring events. So kind of similar to the Career Seeker Resources handout, there could be a box here that says for help with recruiting and hiring events, or whatever, language. We'd have to work through that with you. Call so-and-so or email so-and-so.
Right, so you could customize it with your local Navigator phone number, however you're handling that locally. I think, yep, we can add a little spot for you guys to customize that too.
Okay, great. Okay, I think we'll move on to the next slide.
So this is just a reminder that we do have the Employer Navigator directory. This resource should be available through the staff and partner section of CareerForceMN.com, but this is an additional resource that we can make available to employers, especially employers who are saying, I want to connect with X CareerForce location. Who do I contact? Well, here's an easy way to do that. You don't have to just direct them to CareerForceMN.com and find their local CareerForce. You have a handout here that will give them the direct person to connect with and an email address to connect with them.
Great. And you said this was on the partner, the staff and partner?
Yep, this is in the staff and partner section. I will note that it hasn't been updated in a few months, so if you see updates that need to be made, please let us know, because we don't necessarily know unless we know
somebody
someone
tells
leaves.
us.
Yeah, so please let us know.
And I'd also like to make an acknowledgement that there are some of you on that list there that are 100% employer navigators, and you completely focus your time on being an employer navigator, like Maria and Blaine. I know she's a 100% employer navigator, but there are others of you on this list who might be a 5% employer navigator, and you're only able to dedicate the time when employers contact a location. So we acknowledge that. But the reminder for the employer navigator is a contact to for employers who are reaching out to different locations, and we want to hand them off to the direct location. CareerForce has a goal of a no wrong door approach, and so this employer navigator directory is a way to get people directly to the right contact at our different locations, to not add additional layers of complexity as we're trying to help employers connect with our system. And Tom adds a good note here that is appropriate. We will need to update the Navigator assignment list to reflect the new UI project. I can already see some people that should be crossed off from this list as they will no longer fulfill the role of being an employer navigator. But the best way, everybody, would be to send an email to CareerForce at state.mn.us and let us know if there are any updates, if you need to be removed from this list, if you should be replaced, however that may happen in the different locations.
So we have another question or comment. Is there space to localize information on the business handout?
Yep, that was what we had just talked about there. So if you go back one screen, that little empty spot right there at the bottom, and of course, you know, we can probably make that larger, but that would be where people could customize, you know, for recruiting or hiring events, call, whatever the case may be. I mean, that would have to be customized by location, but there is space for that, yes.
Great.
So I think really what that would look like is similar to the location box from the
Career Seeker
resource.
Yep.
So I have a question, because on the CareerForce, the help desk, we do get inquiries, email or phone calls from employers, and about career fairs or whatever. Is there someone in the CareerForce location that can help me? And so I never thought to look at this directly. Yeah. So is that something that I should be using myself?
We can, yes. The help desk could use this as well as if somebody says, I want to do a hiring event in Detroit Lakes, well, we now know Kelly is the contact in Detroit Lakes.
Good. So that means, Kelly, or whoever, that I will be giving out your contact information so that employers can contact you directly.
Right.
Okay. So, okay, great. And so if you have any other questions or comments, please go ahead and enter them in now. And I'm going to go ahead and read this comment from Mark Zappa. The photo in the diversity in the workplace link lacks diversity in age and obvious disability as well as people of varying weight. Any thoughts?
I don't know what photo where he's looking, but yeah, we'll look at it.
Okay.
Here's what I will say. Every photo can't encompass every issue that we might try to reference, exactly. But if you look across the CareerForce site, we have made a very obvious and concerted effort including involving our Equal Opportunity Office and things like that, to look at it, to make sure that we are kind of covering the universe of how we all look and operate and all of that. So we are very conscious of it. So it might not be able in every photo to encompass everything, but we certainly pay very close attention to that stuff.
Great.
So we'll look at that page and photo. I'm not sure, like I said, what photo he's referring to, but.
Okay. Thank you, Laura.
Yeah, Mark, if you could.
I think I know which photo he's referring to, and I'll just to kind of reiterate Laura's point. I mean, we can't show everything in every photo. I mean, having been the person who uploaded like every photo on the site, pretty much, I tried to make sure we had a mix throughout, just knowing we couldn't represent everyone everywhere. So there aren't always photos to do that. So. And
I think also too, there might be some limited, photos on all the ones that we want. So you have only so many photos to pick from.
Right. So. And photos cost money. That's the other thing is we spent thousands and thousands of dollars to purchase photos just for CareerForceMN.com. That money is now gone, right? And so anything that we do comes out of my personal communications budget, not CareerForce, So it's those things as well. It's not always just as easy as, somebody can snap a photo at some event. That's not high enough resolution. It doesn't,
We need to get permission from everyone in the photo.
Right, exactly. There's rights issues and what are we, So anyhow, yes, we pay very close attention to it, Mark, and we will look at that photo in particular.
And Mark also commented further on that. He said diversity in the workplace. That must be the document.
I think it's a section of the website. So yeah, we'll go look at it. Yep.
And he also said, and I would like this one, I think this one should be as global as possible. In other words, out of all the images, that one probably should be global. Okay. Mark, thank you for that. That was, was well noted. And then a couple other comments. I'm sorry if I missed it. When or where can we get the Career Seeker Resources handout?
So that was a draft that we were reviewing today because we wanted to get your input. So we'll make the revisions based on our discussion today and also some of the emails we've been receiving. Thank you for people who are already sending emails with their additional discussion or with additional suggestions. So we'll want to incorporate all those, and depending upon how much of a change we're talking about, maybe we'll bring this back to you again before we finalize it. Maybe not. Depends on how many changes there are.
So soon, I mean, a couple of weeks maybe, depending on what it takes to get this. My main concern is I'd like to make it into like a fillable document that you guys can keep our description of the system-wide thing, but then make it really easy for you guys to format so that it's maybe not even necessary to do in Word, that it might just be able to be a fillable PDF for you guys, but that is a little bit of a learning curve for my designers to do that. But we want to make it so that like the formatting stays nice and all of that, so that when you guys put your customizable stuff, it looks exactly the same as the other stuff. So.
Sure, that makes sense.
We'll have this PowerPoint on the staff and partners section of the website, so show it to your coworkers and everything, because there will be an expectation, particularly, I can speak directly to job service, that these two resources be available in all of our locations. So now is the time to provide feedback on these two resources. So if you haven't had a chance to voice as some have today in the webinar, send us an email. There will be the links right up here to send us emails for feedback. But the hope is that in the next couple of weeks, we'll be sending these out. You'll see it in a job service. We'll see it from me. And Rita will be sending it out as part of the CareerForce weekly updates to make these available.
Great, thank you all. I just want to read off the last couple comments that Mark had said. He just had said, be careful about focusing on the young too much, which I'm sure that the group here heard well enough. And of course, he thanks us for that, and just thank you. And yet, Mark, thank you for, for bringing this up and making sure that we consider, all groups, particularly the older generation. So,
and for reference to our agency, the department does have a focus on the aging population as well. Our CareerForce director, Lori Janatopoulos, is the department's representative on that effort statewide, and so that is always on our mind.
Great. Okay, great. I think the questions were great. Thank you all for your feedback.
And, and keep them coming. Like we said, we want to make sure that these are going to work for everyone. So
great. Okay, I think we'll go ahead and end the webinar today. Thank everybody for attending, and thank you all for Laura, Rita, and Mike. And we look forward to next month's webinar, and you have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.